Hi folks, welcome to another episode of CFO Plans Fireside Chat. Today I'm meeting with Alex Yancher, the CEO of Passport Shipping. Passport Shipping is a technology-driven international shipping facilitator operating in multiple regions around the globe. They did their Series B last year in 2022. They are represented by about 180 employees worldwide. So it's going to be an interesting conversation. Stay tuned. Alex, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Gary. Thank you for having me.
So, Alex, let's start with your background. So, out of college, UC Berkeley, you joined Morgan Stanley.
That's right.
As an investment analyst. Spent there a couple of years, and then from beyond that, you join Facebook as operations manager, and then that leads you to join another shipping kind of consumer shipping company called Lynx as the COO, and then from there you start Passport Shipping. So walk us through the journey, ups, downs, hardships, successes, failures. So I would like to hear how this all began as Passport Shipping, the backstory to that. So let's walk us through that.
Sure, let's do it, Gary. So, I've always been pretty entrepreneurial, and actually at Berkeley, I started this company called CalParty, calparty.com, which was before Facebook, before for sure Instagram or Snapchat or any of the other social networks. It was meant to be a social network where people would go on this website, calparty.com, and post where they see parties happening. And that idea didn't really go anywhere, but I've always been thinking through things. And I graduated college in 2007, and I wanted to join a company in a role that gave me the skill set to be a good, successful entrepreneur. And one of those jobs coming out of college was investment banking. And I was lucky enough to get a job at Morgan Stanley, which, it's one of the most premier ones. Absolutely. And working at Morgan Stanley, you work with incredibly smart people, and you have one of the most incredible training programs as well. I spent a month in New York learning how to think through a company's financial statements and, really learning what hard work looks like. And I joined during probably the most tumultuous time in the history of investment banking, other than
2008.
2008, yeah. So I graduated in 2007 and started in August of 2007, and then 2008, everything started to kind of come undone in the economy. And I actually was in the financial institutions group, FIG, and we covered banks and thrifts in California. I was in the Los Angeles office, and it was just crazy to see all of the, banks and thrifts that we would cover, basically shutting down left and right. But it was still a really valuable experience for me to see how the industry kind of ended up being okay, and the industry ended up surviving. Obviously, there's a banking industry and a thrift industry in the U.S. But I felt like I was done with investment banking, and the most leverage you can have as an entrepreneur is obviously in the technology space. One line of code can power millions of applications around the world. If you, buy a Wendy's franchise, it's really just that Wendy's franchise, and then obviously you can still build it up brick by brick, but it really takes a long time, and it's also very challenging. But tech, it really kind of gave that kind of far-reaching capabilities, right? So in the time when I was looking for my next role, this is in 2010. So I did 3 years at Morgan Stanley. I was in a similar position where I didn't have any ideas good enough to kind of leave the workforce and anything I was so passionate about. And also, I would say I didn't have enough money saved up to sort of justify just messing around for a few years. So I ended up going to Facebook because Facebook, I thought, can give me that bird's eye view of the tech ecosystem. At the time I joined in 2010, it was really, this is pre-Instagram. So this is before they bought Instagram, right? It was just Facebook at the time for the most part.
Early part of Facebook, actually.
Yeah, very early part of Facebook. I was, I think, like employee number 700 or something like that. Now they have, I don't know, 40,000 people or something like that. And it was pre-IPO as well. And it was social media being accused of helping elect Donald Trump. So it was before any of that. And it was still, even at that time, even before all the craziness afterwards, it was still at the time considered the center of the universe for tech. In fact, it was so center of the universe that there were other tech companies being built on top of Facebook. So Zynga, right? That company owes its existence to Facebook. Groupon, right? You don't think really of Groupon. What does that have to do with Facebook? But that's actually how they got their lists, is that they got really good at advertising on the Facebook platform. And they would get like an email, like 50 cents for an email, like the kind of numbers that you can get on the platform were just incredible. And a bunch of other, really interesting, like polls, that kind of stuff. It was all built on top of Super Poke, that kind of thing. It was all built on top of Facebook. And I thought I was joining a company with really visionary leadership with Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg. And obviously a lot of Facebook alumni have gone out and started their own companies. Amazing company. So it was going to be center of the tech universe, working with the most interesting, smartest people in the world. And really Mark Zuckerberg is going to be known as the way we think about Henry Ford and JP Morgan, you know what I mean? He's that for us, you know what I mean? So just being able to work with him. And he actually had this reputation when I joined of just being very transparent in the company. And when I joined, it really truly was the case. He would have these Friday Q&As for the whole company, and you could basically come and hear this Henry Ford talking about his vision for Facebook, for how it interacts with Facebook, with iPhone, and how it interacts with Microsoft, and just very, very interesting visionary things. So it was an incredible experience. But like I said, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and was essentially looking for that idea that's worthwhile, and maybe like a person to start it with or something like that. And I was patient, I was enjoying my time at Facebook. It's a very cozy life there too. So at Facebook, I met who later became my co-founder and the CEO of a company called Lynx, Lynks, which is a service. It's a personal shopping service. Still around, actually, still going. It's a personal shopping service that helps people abroad buy products from the US, right? And the way it works is somebody takes a link to a product that they want to buy, and they go into what we call a universal shopping cart. They drop it in there. They buy it from us. So they give us the money for the product, for the shipping, for the duties and taxes. We get that money. We take our own credit card, go on Etsy.com,
Basically become a personal shopper for them.
Exactly. And, sometimes they would ask us, oh, can you recommend a good store to buy this, And sometimes they knew exactly what they wanted. But the important thing here to note, and as it led to Passport, is that we weren't in control of what people wanted to buy. So sometimes people wanted to buy a surfboard. Okay, we've got to figure out how to ship it. Sometimes people wanted to buy expensive diamond rings. We've got to figure out how to ship that, right? And also we weren't in control of from where people are buying, because we made the service available to essentially everybody in the world. So it was my job to figure out how to ship a product, big or small, cheap or expensive, and every combination in between, all over the world, right? And as you recall, I did investment banking, and I did business operations at Facebook. What do I know about international shipping? And certainly that's a weakness when you're trying to do international shipping.
Right.
But in a way, it's also a strength,
right.
because I'm not beholden to the quote unquote way of doing
experience.
things.
Yeah. You are going to think fresh. Like you're going to look for new ways of doing things.
Yeah. And I'm forced into thinking about fresh because I don't even know what the not fresh way of looking at it is, you know. So it is an opportunity to approach problems from first principles, which is obviously the best way of approaching problems. And in running links, I realized a few different things. Okay, and I'll walk you through what they are, and that's kind of what led to Passport. One, I realized that international shipping is so much more than international shipping, meaning the physical logistics of moving a package from point A to point B. It's also regulatory compliance. Am I even allowed to ship this product? Okay. What's my duties and taxes? Every country has its own way of charging for duties and taxes and things like that. In fact, some countries like Canada, they have the same system that we do, where it's not one uniform sales tax rate. Every province in Canada has their own tax rate.
Tell me about it. We know about it. Accounting, harmonized tax.
Harmonized tax code, exactly. And the national gross services tax, GST, right? And of course, like every country has its own different way of doing things. Brazil also has like a state tax system. You know, it gets very confusing. And you can't divorce the physical logistics from this regulatory and financial component. You can't. It just doesn't work. Because the company that physically transports that package is also the company that's doing your duties and taxes for that parcel shipment. So you can't remove those things. Okay. Customer support, it's a different world. For an American shipment to go from, you know, New York to LA, right? A very large distance, but it's like 3 days, whatever, you know, and there's like established norms around it. It's one thing to do customer support for it. It's a completely different thing when the shipment is going to take 10 business days, you know? So that's a different engagement model. And I realized at the time that there is no company that is recognizing how these different components, exactly, how they work separately and how they come together, and offering this sort of turnkey solution in the market. And that's really what I think is needed and necessary for e-commerce, right? The way I did it at Lynx was, well, I used, you know, like FedEx or something, whatever, and then I would use this sort of either like custom built software that we ourselves built at Lynx or some off the shelf thing, and never anything actually quite worked well. It was always like one number, like DHL is telling us one number, you know, the software is telling us another number. We're calculating a different number, and nothing ever ties. Nobody wants to take responsibility for it. Nobody wants to reconcile it, and it's just a big pain. You know? So wanted to solve this problem. So I left Lynx as the founder CEO of this new company, Passport, to basically be like a modern day version of international, where we solve not just those like physical operational logistics problems, but we also solve a lot of those software driven internationalization problems, and we tie it together under one solution or one brand, and that's what we brought to market.
That's great. We're going to get into that in more detail in a minute. So folks, I saw on Passport Shipping site and about a section that if Alex didn't do this, he would have been a comedian. So that's an interesting story. So I have to ask about that. So like, what's the background? Why comedian? Like, what's your comedic background?
Great question, Gary. Well, you know, I don't really have a comedic background, professionally speaking or anything like that. I just, it's the thing in life that brings me the most joy. And I think that it's a universal language that diffuses situations, that brings people together, that connects things, and makes life just so much more interesting and fun. So if I could have that as my daily, everyday, that's all I do is think about jokes, and I'm always kind of cracking myself up, or I'm funny amongst my friends. You know, I can't think of a better life than that, to be honest.
And to be a comedian, you have to be a great observer of things, So
True.
that goes with being a CEO.
Yeah.
You have to observe little things behind the scenes,
Totally.
what is happening not in the picture, but what's behind the picture. So that comes together. That's one thing in common, actually. So.
Very, very true. Some of the best CEOs I know are also very funny.
Very
actually,
funny people. Right. All right. Thank you. Let's talk about the technology. So passport shipping. When I think about it as an outsider, not totally an outsider, but looking from away from internal operations, I see three things. Well, technology. You need to piece it together so that when a consumer looks at the cart or the checkout page, they don't see all the complexities, the ton of things that goes into this equation, but they only see, okay, what's my duty, what's my shipping, how many days it takes. It's so simple, but behind the scenes there's a lot of noise. So the technology piece. Second is the information piece, how you collect these various regulations applicable to various global regions, and then constantly changing information also. And then you have a logistics piece, which is, you're working with the DHL of the world, the FedEx of the world, and various last mile carriers. So that's the logistics piece. Then there's the third component, which is the human piece, which is customer service. So in case someone has an issue, how it comes together. So let's talk about customer service separately, but about the technology and the information piece, how does it come together? When I try to wrap my head around it, it's like, how can one company piece it together? Is a big issue. So how did you start to do it? How did you become successful? Shed some light on that.
Yeah. Well, there's this famous quote I read recently. It's like, we don't do things because they're easy.
Right.
We do things because we think they're going to be easy.
So, or should be easy.
Or should be easy. Yeah. So I think, frankly speaking, I didn't realize it was going to be this complicated. And once we started to kind of get in the middle of it, it was no turning back. And we just needed to finish our mission and get our solution to a point where thousands of brands can use it.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good breakdown of how you delineated it. Let's start with really the core value prop of shipping. We are going to get the package delivered from point A to point B. All the other things that make international easy, they don't matter if we can't deliver on this core value prop of the actual physical logistics.
Right.
So the way we do it is we think about an international shipment across many different component pieces. We don't think of it as one big entire thing, and we're solving this one thing. We're solving each individual piece component of getting to that shipment. So what does that mean? Well, for starters, there's a first mile component. Our customers, they're either brands that have their own warehouse, or they use a third party logistics provider, a 3PL,
right,
and the inventory is in that warehouse.
Yeah.
Well, before it can go from a warehouse in Los Angeles over to somebody's house in Toronto,
right,
it needs to have a pickup.
Yeah.
There needs to be this first mile pickup. And frankly speaking, it doesn't matter where it's going ultimately.
Right.
At the end of the day, the package needs to be picked up, and it needs to be taken to a consolidation. Okay.
Yeah.
So we do pickups from all over the United States, and we bring them into essentially right now 3 different facilities. One on the West Coast, one in Chicago,
right,
Central, and one on the East Coast.
Right.
Okay. And all of our clients, through one form or fashion, they get their packages first to that location. Okay. Then we combine all the packages together and do sortations.
Right.
Okay, this one's going to Canada,
right,
put in the Canada pile. This
right,
one's going to UK, put in the UK section.
Right.
And then just next leg of the journey, depending on whether or not it's Canada, it might go on a truck. If it's the UK, it's going to go on a plane.
Right.
And that has its own set of challenges and,
Right.
and everything like that. But we solved that piece then.
Mm-hmm.
And then once it gets into the country, it gets inducted into a last mile network.
Mm-hmm.
We ourselves, of course, I touched this thing. We ourselves certainly don't own trucks or hire people in, Germany or something like that. We have a last mile network that we leverage, and we hand our packages over to those companies.
Right.
It's a very built out, sophisticated solution for, let's say, Canada. We use multiple carriers.
Yeah.
For some countries, we'll use one carrier, and that's fine for that particular country.
Right.
So that's how we do everything on the logistics side.
Yeah.
There is a data layer, as you mentioned, and then there is a people customer support layer,
right.
That sits on top of that network.
Yeah.
And we have to ensure that, for starters, all the numbers match, so that's the data information layer.
Yeah.
And it starts from the very beginning that we are taking in good, clean, accurate information from our logistics partners, or from straight from the horse's mouth,
right.
the Shopify store,
right.
That the brand is running.
Yeah.
And we're handing the correct information to the customs broker.
Mm-hmm.
That's also very important.
Right.
It's not just the customer needs to make sure that we get the customer the right information, but we have other customers, like the local customs officials in, say, Canada or UK. Mm-hmm. It's always a thing of trust. Right. They trust that we're passing along accurate information to them, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one part of the information stack. Then the other part of the information stack is that we can pass along the correct duty and tax amount that the customer needs to bill, so that they are collecting, the correct amount of VAT or GST or HST, whatever it happens to be, so that they're not either making money on it, that's not right, and they're definitely not losing money. Right. That's definitely something that they want to avoid. Yeah. And
when you say customer, by the way, folks, he's talking about the passport shipping customer, not the end customer, right? So they, like what he's saying is, they don't want to be losing money or making money on that little piece, because they are not in that business. They're in the business of selling products.
Yes, exactly. And for that, we have a very sophisticated database that sits underneath our duty and tax calculator, with many years of finding where there's corner cases that maybe we weren't even aware of. These corner cases, and like slowly but maturely building up a solution that I think it's really one of the top in the market now, of calculating the correct amount of customs and duties. And then on the customer support, it's two components of it. There's the sort of happy path, making sure that you have the tracking along every step that I just described. There's more steps than I described. I'm kind of simplifying it. Right. But at the very least, you want to capture milestones from the first mile. You want to capture milestones when it gets to the US consolidation. You want to capture the milestone when it gets shipped to another country, when it clears customs, and then when it gets handed over to the last mile carrier. Right. And you want that delivery confirmation. That's sort of best in breed tracking. Right. So that's one big component of it. We have a product manager on it. We take tracking very seriously. Obviously, it's a source of a lot of anxiety and concern for customers when they don't have access to good tracking. Yeah. And it leads to a lot of customer support tickets and all that. So obviously, tracking is very, very critical. Yeah. And then there's also the exception handling part, where even if we did everything right, things are still going to go wrong.
Because humans are involved.
Exactly. So for us, having a good exception handling game plan, I think, is partially what sets us apart. Right. We know where to spot where the problem is likely happening. Should we be reaching out to that first mile trucking company? Is there a problem in our consolidation facility? Is there a problem with the last mile? So we know where to go. We know what to ask. We have the relationships. And we try to be really empathic with our customers, and we know that they really care about the package that they're receiving, and customer in this particular case. So yeah, that's another really critical component. It all ties together, and it's a very seamless solution for customers.
That's amazing. Well, folks, that's how passport shipping combines a lot of noise behind the scenes coming from various components and make a music product to the end user. So they hear music, but behind the scenes, a lot of noise. Right?
Yep.
So you have to streamline it, compose it together, and then give the final product.
Totally.
Great. That's the technology component. Now, the third component, the customer service, the human aspect of the whole solution. So this is where the living, breathing people comes into the equation. So you're talking about this last minute, the tracking and all those things. So with ever evolving local laws and regulation, the changing dynamics of this whole thing, how do this customer service team that you have formed, how do they keep up? How do you train them? I'm sure there's a lot of focus in this particular area of the company because without that team playing the A game, everything falls apart. So technology is great, logistics that's great, but this team keeps it together. So let's talk about it. Like how do you hire them first of all? How do you hire these superstars? How do you train them? How do they keep up with all the changing aspects of this?
Yeah. Well, let me start with describing our philosophy around this thing. For us, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Meaning, we have a global trade compliance team. And we review every product and every product description and all the data that we get so that we don't get into trouble down the road and have customer support blow-ups and things like that. So we have a specialist team that basically, like I said, this is the ounce of prevention, reviews everything. So most of what our customer support team handles is, of course, there's the inevitable exception handling, and even that, I would say, ends up going to our global trade team because they're specialists. Because per your point, how could you train, customer support, representatives in all the different global rules and all that? I mean, it's just too much.
Right. Because this is not like a regular call center because they need to be inherently knowledgeable about everything that you do.
Exactly. So it's almost too hard, to be honest. So we've decided to not even put them in that position. And we handle all of our kind of more complicated global rules and regulations as part of like a global trade knowledge base. And that, we have very talented people who work there. They put together internal documentation. We build software around catching exceptions before, something gets held at customs or a customer gets upset by something. So our customer support organization is mostly built around triaging where is my package type of questions, WISMO. Where's my parcel? Where's my package? That's really their job.
Right. So the team can pretty much look up in a certain place, like in a database, and give that answer. Like they don't have to figure things out. That part is already figured. That's what we're trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. We've tried to make it really easy for them to give a customer a satisfactory answer.
Yeah.
Of course, sometimes the answer is it looks like the package is lost. And there's no kind of good way of delivering that bad news, and it's bad news. But at the very least, we try to be transparent when we truly think that something is lost versus, sometimes packages through whatever situation just are delayed. But, our team, they know where to look. They know how to go beyond what are like just automated information is giving to a customer. So we can hopefully be a little bit more helpful when a downstream customer reaches out to us. Our approach to customer support has been trying as hard as possible to automate with AI as
I was
much.
going to ask, like, how much of AI is going to come into play?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has two functions. One is there are, call it 50% of questions that everybody asks, and the approach to answering them is pretty much exactly the same for each one. It's looking in certain parts of the database and evaluating based on certain criteria what response to give somebody. AI is very, very good at that kind of structured input output. And we use we didn't build it ourselves. We use a third-party software that's been really great for us, and it's shielded us from, like I said, like 50% of tickets. And then the other 50%, AI can also play a role, but that one is more in a co-pilot type function where they help our reps search for the answer within our systems and our databases faster. And those are very, I'd say, localized AIs. So for example, we use Notion as part of our information stack. And Notion, they have their own AI, and the role of Notion AI is, I mean, it does a few different things, but one of them is to make search easier and more effective. Semantic search. Here's my situation. I'm looking for a document that explains this. And Notion AI search is very adept at finding that and pulling that up. So that's been very helpful for us. And it's allowed us to kind of have basically two tiers of support. We have a tier of support that is, the team is based here in the US. And then we have a team that's offshore that handles, like a type of question that doesn't need immediate attention and that doesn't need, one-on-one engagement with a customer. It can be done sort of asynchronously.
Got it. Okay. All right. That makes sense. All right. So those are the three components of this whole solution: logistics, the technology, and the human aspect of it. All right. So let's move on to the next segment, which is the financing of the company. So speaking of the funding rounds, so when I think about a company going into funding rounds, so of course, most of these companies, they start the seed round, of course. Bunch of angel investors, sometimes family, friends, they come together, put in a couple of $1 million to play, and then proof of concept. Then comes Series A. Now all of a sudden, more serious investors, more sophisticated investors comes into the picture. Then if you go beyond that, Series B, that means you have gone way beyond your prototype. People starts to trust you. They have more, more confidence in you. So now you attract more, I guess, enterprise level investors, so to speak. So you have done that part. Series B, 39 million, 2022, 2021, end of 2021 to early part of 2022. So, so my question is, it's not easy to convince investors beyond the Series A unless you have figured what we are doing. So where I see products is product or service. There are products that are unique, but in a crowded market. But there are products that are unique and in isolated or more niche markets. And then there are products that are not so unique, common products in very crowded markets, like burger shops, for example. And then the the fourth one is unique products, not so unique products in not so crowded markets. Where do you belong? I think you belong in very like a fifth segment, I would say, because you seem like a common solution, because when people think about shipping companies, they think about immediately FedEx, the DHL, and the UPS, last mile carriers, or like messenger services. That's what comes into mind, right? But what you are doing is you take that kind of a common solution, put technology into it, put information into it, and make it a unique solution and present it to a crowded market. But that crowded market actually becomes a crowded opportunity for you. So that's how I see it. So you can explain it better probably. So with that, you take that to the investors, and obviously rest is history. Investors have already put their trust in you, confidence in you. So how was the journey like when you took this, what you had in mind initially to the angel investors, and then from there Series A to Series B? Let's walk us through that journey.
Sure. Yeah. Well, when we raised a Series seed, we didn't have any customers.
Yeah.
We didn't have any revenue. We just had the vision of building a modern day version of DHL. And our tagline for investors, at least, it was modern DHL.
Right.
And if an investor went on Yahoo Finance and put in DHL, they would see it's $60 billion company.
Right.
FedEx, $70 billion company. UPS, $100 billion company. So this is a market where you can build a unicorn in theory. And then the trick is to consider, well, what is your differentiator going to be?
Right.
These are incredible companies. It's very difficult to break through.
Yeah.
What is your differentiator? And does the market care about your differentiator? Well, that was something that we raised a Series seed in order to prove that out. On paper, yeah, it makes sense, and in reality, it maybe because I already knew that it was going to work because I had done this essentially at Links and had faced this problem myself.
Right.
But I realized that e-commerce is actually a new type of buyer for international shipping from like the 1970s international shipping e-commerce buyer. International shipping has existed for a long time, way before e-commerce, but it was mainly for document shipping, like one law office to another law office, or there's like some M&A deal and you need to get documents signed and shipped and crossed all over the world, right? So that was one main aspect of document shipping internationally, and that's that was DHL Express's specialty. And then the other international shipping reason was for like manufacturing. You need like a bolt or you need like a part, and you could only get it from a factory in Taiwan or something like that. So that's another one. And the last one was just more casual, like a grandma sends baked cookies to her daughter who's like studying abroad in Canada or something,
right? Birthday present,
a birthday present or something like that. But there was very little like just buying something from a company that didn't really exist, And frankly speaking, when I started this company 7 years ago, international shipping, of course, it was around, and there was already international parcel shipping, but it was still pretty small. So, part of the bet of Passport for an investor, it was product market fit. Obviously, you're basing it on that, but it was also the size of the market. That you're betting that. Right now, it might seem kind of small, but you have to believe that as the
culture evolves, right? So,
yes, exactly. And that market is going to expand very quickly. And really, that's been proven out. E-commerce has obviously grown very fast. And then it grew extra fast during COVID, right? And so we raised our Series A before COVID started. And then just on the back of proving out some product market fit. And then the Series B came, we just got very lucky in the timing. It came when COVID was lifting all boats and, e-commerce was booming, and we're a major player in e-commerce on the internationalization front. So, so that was, got a little bit lucky with the timing on that. But fundamentally, I don't really view, of course it is crowded in a sense, but I don't really view our space as crowded because there's not that many companies that are doing international shipping in the way we are doing it. In fact, I would say nobody is doing international shipping in the way we are doing it. Now, that's not to say that there are no competitive threats or pressures.
Right.
It's just coming from a different angle.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's more of like, even before Passport started, when I was at Lynx,
Right.
I was still able to do international shipping for
Right.
e-commerce,
Right.
but I had to go find a different duty and tax solution. I had to go figure out customer support. I had to figure out regulatory compliance, and I had to go get a physical logistics company.
Yeah.
That's still a possibility, and some companies choose to do a DIY, amalgamation of different components,
Right.
but that's a great place for us to be.
Right.
That's a very strong marketing message for us. Just don't do any of that. It's just a waste of your time.
Right.
We'll do it all for you.
Right.
Maybe we'll capture a little bit of margin for it, but not that much.
Right.
So I really like the space, to be honest with you. Our main competitors are these kind of logistics companies that are very strong in their core competency of logistics,
Right.
but are very weak in
technology
and the software aspect of the solution.
Yeah.
In fact, they know it themselves. They've been acquiring companies or partnering, but to me, the magic is in being vertically integrated on that,
Right.
and having these pieces work seamlessly together rather than like buying a company, bolting it on. It just doesn't really work.
All this while, this has been out there for someone to grab, and you grabbed it actually.
Yes.
That's pretty much it. This actually is pretty much similar to Tesla's story. Car companies were there. Like, no one thought at the time there's an opportunity for one more car company to come and be successful, right? So they did it, and how they did that was by differentiation, right? I mean, they were like, when electric was not so popular, they led the whole revolution. So you kind of did the same thing in this space. So so it looks crowded. Like I said, that's because your mind is pretty focused on one little area.
Yeah.
You don't see the opportunity. Yeah. Cool. So that was basically what you're saying is this became almost a no-brainer for any investor. They jumped on the opportunity. So that's a great story. So in this segment, we are going to talk about the internal affairs of the company. Like, while the market is great, the technology is great, if you don't build your teams properly, well, that's another opportunity for failure. But at the same time, the flip side of that is this is also how you make a company successful. So in passport shipping, of course, you have the engineering team, which is a heavy presence, and then you have the customer service team, you have the general administration part, you have the information processing team, and then of course the finance team. So from your humble beginnings in 2017, I want to say, so that's more like the operational birth of the company, and then from there all the way to now, to 180 plus employees globally. Let's talk about how you did it, some of the things that you probably, if you are given the opportunity, how you would change or done differently, and then what are the next steps. So let's start with your 2017 team, and then let's walk through the progress.
2017 team. So when I started Passport, I had a co-founder, very talented guy named Aaron Schwartz, who used to run a brand and really, is also an incredible entrepreneur and tells a very good story, and helped fundraise and helped sell some of our first accounts. So, he was on the sales side of things. I was more on the operations, technical know-how, because I was the international shipping expert from Lynx. So we hired a CTO. That was, I'd say, our first hire. And even before the CTO, we had a couple of engineers to build early prototypes to sort of start to onboard some of our first accounts, very friendly accounts, just to sort of test it out, make sure that what we're trying to do is working. And then came the operation part. Well, operations for us was figuring out the logistics, making sure that like I said, the common denominator is the package has to be delivered, And we hired this one wonderful woman named Kat Sun, who actually still works with us.
Oh yeah, of course.
She just celebrated 6 years with us. Maybe even remember working with her. She handled invoicing for us at some point.
Yeah.
And she became really a major leader in the company that built up every other operational team and back office team as the company grew. So at some point we hit 50 people. We needed somebody on HR. She hired that person, and now HR, we call it people ops, reports to Kat. At some point we needed not just one customer support team, but we needed two. One that dealt with the customers in Canada, UK, Australia who are buying things, the end customers, as we've been calling them, and then also a customer success team that works with brands and 3PLs. She built up both those teams. You know, she at first was the only person who did she did HR, she did customer support, she did customer success, she did operations. Then we needed a daily operations team because there were so many different pickups that we were handling and so many different, you know, shipping companies that we were working with. We needed an operations team. Same thing. Kat knew it. She hired a middle manager, and the rest is history, you know, on that side of things. And then we started to get some specialization on the engineering side as well. You know, we started to need product managers. You know, we really only hired our first product manager maybe 2 years ago. And before that, I would say I was the product manager, and I led all product decisions, and I worked very closely with our CTO. And then it became, you know, with so many different products out there, from tracking to the duty and tax calculator to insurance, you know, and it needed professional product management on top of that. And then actually, I know you know this, Gary, but we acquired a company.
Yes, AW.
Yeah, Access Worldwide. And that team became essentially our supply chain team. We call it commercial. It's, you know, the former CEO of that company is now our chief commercial officer. But that was a team also that I would say I had that role myself, and I would kind of consider the logistics partners and vendors and what we're looking for. But it became too big for me to own and manage myself. And one of the main reasons that we acquired this company is because we wanted to get the talent that knew how to build this network, manage it, oversee it, and also, Gary, had the relationships. So we weren't starting from scratch with the relationships. That also takes, you know, 6 to 12 months, even longer to you know, meet all the right people, have calls with them, you know, build some rapport. So we hired that company, and now that's, you know, a major component of our strategy and our team. It's you know, our commercial team.
That's a great story. So, as you grew, of course, I mean, at this point, you're not a small company. I mean, 180 employees, and these employees are not some blue collar workers. I mean, these are actual professionals, professional grade employees, engineering to accounting. So, like, when you manage a company like this, of course, there are inherent problems. So, anything that you would have done differently, like anything that comes to your mind, like, hey, you know, if I given the chance, I would probably change this, you know, A, B, and C. So, anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of things. I'll tell you probably, you know, the ones that stick out in my head. I think, you know, it's not just me, but a lot of CEOs, they have problems letting go. And it's a cute thing. A CEO doesn't want to let go, but it actually really holds a company back. It's actually a very big problem. And I think that I hired Taylor way too late. You know, he's our director of finance, or now a VP of finance. When he was hired as a director of finance. He's now been promoted to VP of finance. And as you recall, I was the one who was in that role and was managing all the the invoicing. You know, we had a great partner in CFO plans that gave me a lot of leverage, but it was not a good use of my time, to be honest.
Absolutely, complete waste actually. So in fact, that's where CFO plans comes into play. So I mean, obviously, CFO plans, our team has been with Passport Shipping almost from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So as the company grew, we stayed on, and then you hired Taylor, in this case, a VP of Finance, at the time Director of Finance. So, however, you kept us. CFO Plans stayed on as the accounting services provider. So that's actually, one reason most companies hire us. Like we can grow or contract as per the needs. So in most cases, it's a growth. So as passport shipping grew, we added more resources, and we became part and parcel of your team, Taylor's team in this case. So what do you think about us? Like what, you have always been a good proponent of CFO Plans. So for our listeners to hear, like if you can say a few things about CFO Plans team, like why you kept us, what's the value that we are adding to passport shipping.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, just functionally speaking, you were and are still essentially our bookkeeper. And it frees up Taylor, our VP of Finance, to work on things like forecasting. We're not asking CFO Plans to build our 2024 plan.
Right.
We're asking our VP of Finance to build the plan, but he can't do it if he's working on allocating
invoicing and payables.
Exactly, invoicing and payables. Yeah, exactly. So I think the relationship started very early on, just as like a basic bookkeeping function. And then we started to onboard you guys for more complicated things like sending out invoices, following up on late payments, and also accounts payable as well, evaluating, making sure we're paying the right amount, and following up with vendors to ensure that they're, we're keeping them honest.
Right.
And, your team allowed us to scale without us having to hire a person dedicated to hiring accountants and bookkeepers and all of that. We knew that you guys are going to do that. You guys have, this finance talent pool and the capability of evaluating people and bringing them on board. So that gave us a tremendous amount of leverage. And frankly speaking, we still have a very small finance team. I think we have maybe like 4 people on the team, for, internally. Yeah, exactly. And that's good. I've always wanted to keep a lean team, to be honest with you. Yeah. So, like some of the things that I think have worked really well is just really great communication,
availability, and
exactly.
And just like passport, like we are tech driven too. Like we use a lot of technology, fintech, to support, like make it happen for you. Like the customers only see, oh yeah, our books are done, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of noise.
Totally.
So we make it happen. Yeah. So glad to hear that. And mostly for the benefit of the listeners. So thank you for that. All right, folks. Great. So this is another CEO fireside chat. So we will bring one more every month. Stay tuned. So you can hear from our CEOs, our client CEOs, about their technology, their products, services, how they grew the companies, their personal stories. Stay tuned. Until next time, goodbye.